Apple's competitors have spent lots of time over the past few years deciding how a personal computer should look. Now, after years of engineering, it looks like they've reached a conclusion. They've decided it should look like a Macintosh. A lot of people in the press say that spells doom for Apple. But generally, these are the same people who predict the doom of Apple every year. The only thing that changes is the competitor. A year ago, it was Next. Before that, OS2. Before that, IBM's PC Junior. But even though our competitors may imitate the way Macintosh looks, they can't come close to the way it works. Today, we'll compare Microsoft Windows running on an IBM PS2 Model 70 with a Macintosh 2CI to show you that Macintosh really is the best personal computer because it's the only personal computer with a unified architecture. And Apple is the only computer company that designs and builds all the fundamental parts of its system. As we'll see, that gives Macintosh big advantages in 4 key areas: ease of use, applications, networking, and future growth path. And these are advantages that Windows can't match, because where all the parts of the Macintosh, hardware, system software, peripherals, and interface, fit together as a unified whole, Windows has been added on top of DOS, which was never designed to support it in the first place. Once that point is clear, it's easy to help customers look past the surface of Windows and show them how deep the advantages of Macintosh really are. Of all the advantages that Macintosh offers, the one people know best is ease of use. That's what Windows is supposed to bring to the DOS-based world. But real ease of use can't be bolted on to an old-style PC. It has to be built in from the chips up, the way it's been built into the Macintosh from the very beginning, and the way every Macintosh user experiences it from the moment they open the Macintosh box. When it comes to setting up a Macintosh, for instance, all the user has to do is plug in a few cables. Software is already installed on the hard disk, so all the user does is plug in the power cord, hook up the monitor, attach the keyboard and mouse, hit the on button, and they're welcome to a happy Macintosh that's ready to run. But with a PC, plugging in the components is just the beginning, because users also have to format the hard disk, install the system software. Pretty complex task for somebody who's new to computers. After that, DOS will need to know what kind of components are hooked up to the system. And this is something the Macintosh understands automatically. Then, it's time to set up Windows. In the time it takes to complete these procedures and get one PS2 up and running, 30 Macintosh systems could be unpacked and configured. Or, people who haven't worked with computers before could spend that time taking a tour of the Macintosh to learn all the basic skills they need. That kind of helpful tutorial is something you won't find with DOS or with Windows. And it's as easy to expand a Macintosh system as it is to set it up in the first place. With a SCSI connector, a standard feature on every Macintosh sold today, we can connect peripherals like a hard disk, a CD-ROM drive, a scanner, in seconds just by plugging them in. And we can have all these devices hooked up to the Macintosh without using up any of its expansion slots. So we can add a second monitor or even a third and work with all of them at the same time. Now let's see what it takes to configure our IBM system with the same kind of peripherals. Since the Model 70 doesn't offer a SCSI as a standard feature, we'll have to install individual interface cards for each peripheral, using up every one of our expansion slots. And since the operating system can't recognize hardware without our help, we'll have to run installation programs to configure the devices properly. We can't add any extra monitors to the IBM PC because we've used up all the slots. But even if we had the room, the extra monitors wouldn't do us any good because standard IBM PCs aren't designed to use more than one monitor at a time. We've seen that Macintosh has big advantages because of the way the hardware and software work together. Well, what if you ignore the hardware and just look at what the software can do? Some people say Windows matches the software features of Macintosh, but it just isn't so. The first thing to notice about Windows is that it has created two different panes, excuse the pun, Program Manager and File Manager. This combination of two applications is supposed to approximate the environment found in the Macintosh desktop. Program Manager is used to start your applications, and File Manager is used to move, copy, and delete files on the hard disk. But unfortunately, File Manager and Program Manager are both built on top of DOS, so they don't talk to each other. If we make a change in one, the other program may not notice. For instance, suppose we want to move our word processor from the directory called Windows in File Manager into the directory called Process. Moving the application files is easy enough. But then, when we go into Program Manager and double-click on the icon to launch the application, Windows gives us an error message. That's because Program Manager doesn't keep track of changes we made in File Manager. So when you click on the icon in Program Manager, it looks for the program in its old location. Now, if this sounds confusing to you, imagine what it's like for a computer novice. To correct the problem, we have to use the Properties menu in Program Manager and type in the new DOS path name for the program. A simple change that would have been handled automatically on Macintosh throws Windows users back into DOS. In fact, Windows has to work with almost all of the traditional DOS limitations because it's been built on top of DOS. So, where Macintosh gives you the freedom to call your files and folders whatever you like, Windows can only accept DOS file names with 8 characters or less, which forces you to create your own version of computer code. Where Macintosh lets you arrange your icons any way you want, File Manager icons are locked into the DOS directory tree. This prevents you from arranging them in the way that suits you best. And where the Macintosh can respond when you make a physical change to the system, like inserting a diskette, Windows isn't connected so closely to the hardware. So when you put a diskette into the IBM PC, it doesn't notice it until you tell the machine that the disk is there. Even worse, when we remove our first diskette, insert a new one, and try to look for a file, Windows displays the old disk directory on screen. This forces us to use a new command, refresh Windows, just to look at the files that are actually in the drive. Now, Macintosh does all of this automatically. But the unique combination of power and ease of use in Macintosh means more than convenience. It also translates into superior performance. Several independent studies have shown that Macintosh programs generally run faster than their counterparts in Windows. For instance, here's Microsoft's own PowerPoint program running on the Macintosh 2CI and the IBM Model 70. Which computer would you rather use for a critical presentation? If your customers are still having a tough time telling the difference between Macintosh and Windows, introduce them to a few applications. Show them what a world of difference there really is. Because not only does Macintosh offer more applications than all other graphical environments combined, including Windows, Presentation Manager, New Wave, OSF's Motif, Sun's Open Look, and Next, it also provides consistency across all those applications. So once you learn your first Macintosh application, you'll be well on your way to learning them all.
Consistency on the Macintosh is really the reason why the Macintosh is so easy to use. In terms of running one application and then moving on to another application, moving between the application and the Finder. The reason why applications are consistent is because we've built in the basic user interface functions into the ROM of the Macintosh. That's true from the original Macintosh introduced in 1984. Every Macintosh has these facilities built in. Every Macintosh comes with these facilities. And so every application on the Macintosh ever written uses these facilities in the same way. That means that applications look the same, they feel the same, They all operate in the same way. No other environment has provided this consistent level of functionality built into the computer, and so no set of applications on any other platform performs with this same kind of consistency.
Of course, Windows is supposed to introduce consistency to the DOS-based world, but let's see if that really happens. In fact, even with Microsoft's own applications designed specifically for Windows, there are inconsistencies that could easily confuse users. For instance, selecting a word and pressing the backspace key executes a delete command in PowerPoint for Windows, but in Word for Windows moves the cursor to the beginning of the word. And in Excel for Windows, it moves the cursor back one space, which poses the question: if Microsoft doesn't make Windows applications consistent, what chance is there that anybody else ever will? Conventional wisdom has long held that MS-DOS platforms offer the best connectivity, but reality indicates otherwise, because the unified design of the Macintosh incorporates connectivity features at every level of the architecture, with a network connector built into every Macintosh ever sold, with a native networking protocol, AppleTalk, incorporated into the Macintosh's operating system, with built-in tools that give users access to networking services and features with classic Macintosh simplicity, and with networking applications that connect Macintosh with all the most widely used networking environments, including TCP and OSI. But the important thing about networking in Macintosh is not just the connections we make, but the easy way we make those connections. For instance, in a small network, Macintosh users can share a laser printer simply by plugging their machines together. There's no other installation involved. In a larger business, Macintosh users can cut and paste information from other kinds of computers, even mainframes, mini-computers, in a completely Macintosh way. Now compare this networking strategy with the Model 70 at the high end of the IBM line, which ships without any networking capabilities.
You need to add an interface card to attach to the physical media your network is, the network you're sitting on. Once you've done that, you need to install the appropriate client utilities, and when you're ready to access your network resource, you need to know the network path to it. So you need to kind of give your computer directions how to navigate to these network resources you're trying to access.
With Macintosh, of course, none of these tasks is necessary, because the networking port is already built in, and because AppleTalk identifies new networking resources automatically. So when you plug in a new printer or file server, it appears in the Macintosh instantly. And since AppleTalk is compatible with both Ethernet and token ring cables, we can increase transmission speed without sacrificing simplicity. What's more, AppleTalk networks can communicate with networks from other vendors like IBM and Digital.
We're committed to working with existing standards for the networking environment. We support different lower level protocols for accessing network resources, for connecting to certain media types, but we also provide enhancements on top of that. The way we view our Macintosh way of accessing network resources is a little bit different from other companies' view towards accessing network resources. We want network resources to operate in a consistent, intuitive manner. We want network data, or data out on the network, things people are trying to access, to operate in a very similar fashion to the way data on your local device will operate.
So far, we've seen some of the advantages that set Macintosh computers apart. Now let's look at what ties them all together. That's a track record of smooth, uninterrupted growth that includes the introduction of revolutionary new products like the laser writer, continuous enhancements like high-resolution color displays, and convenient multitasking. And since every Macintosh shares the same basic components and is based on the same unified design, they can all take advantage of these new innovations. Which means the investment users made in a Macintosh Plus 6 years ago is worth even more today. And since the most advanced Macintosh can still run applications created 6 years ago, the investment users made in information is safe as well. That kind of backward and forward compatibility simply isn't available in the DOS-based world, as the release of Windows 3.0 clearly shows. An independent research organization, IDC, has estimated that Windows 3 won't run on 75% of the DOS machines in use today. And of the machines that can run Windows, more than half, these are 802.86 machines with less than 2 megabytes of memory or limited graphics capabilities, will do so with very slow performance. That's a good point to drive home and a great way to highlight the cost of doing business with IBM PCs. Because even the newer IBM machines, like the Model 25 and the Model 30, can't run Windows 3. And the mid-range systems, the Model 3286 and the Model 50Z, may require additional memory or system enhancements to deal with Windows. And even if your hardware can run Windows, you'll still need to buy new applications or upgrades to take advantage of all of its new features. That's an upgrade investment that PC Week magazine estimates at $3,700 per machine. And when users have completed the upgrade to Windows, they'll have another upheaval to look forward to. This is because IBM and Microsoft have both stated that OS/2, not Windows, is the operating system of the 90s, which faces today's PC users with a troubling dilemma. Should they commit to DOS, or Windows, or OS/2? And if they guess wrong, what happens then? Another myth that sprang up in the wake of Windows 3 was that Windows could deliver all the benefits of the Macintosh on a less expensive DOS-based machine. Now this is odd, considering the price of this Macintosh 2 CI is actually lower than this comparably equipped IBM Model 70. Of course, some PC companies charge less for their machines than IBM. But the cost savings of a PC clone also come with some risk, that the manufacturer will go out of business, that product support will be spotty, that there may be incompatibility or product quality problems. But more important, the cost of buying a computer is not the same as the cost of owning it. When you factor in training time and other ownership expenses, independent researchers like the Gartner Group say Macintosh is thousands of dollars less expensive to own than a PC running Windows. Macintosh and the PC have about the same administration cost, but Macintosh has lower support costs, lower operations costs, which include the time users spend trying to learn new aspects of their applications as they work. For a business, these savings go straight to the bottom line in improved productivity. For an individual user, they save something even more important than money, your time. Because with Macintosh, you can spend more time getting your work done instead of figuring out how to do it. Whenever you're comparing Macintosh against PCs, it's important to remember that Apple designed Macintosh as a complete system, not a patchwork of separate components that were retrofitted together. Because Apple understands the importance of the graphical interface, every Macintosh comes bundled with a mouse and operating system. Whereas with most DOS machines, the interface and the mouse are add-ons. You have to buy them separately. Because Apple understands how important it is to share information, most Macintosh computers sold today come with SuperDrive, a disk drive that can read and write to Macintosh, DOS, OS/2, even Apple II disk. And with third-party products like SoftPC, Macintosh can run DOS, even Windows applications, so you can preserve your investment in software and information. Because Apple has foreseen the importance of sound in computing, every Macintosh comes with sound hardware and software built in. While the IBM PC can't do much more than beep, a Macintosh can do all this.
I know you're going to like the curve fit on this last set of data. It's just what we need to take to Dean Whitlow.
That gives Macintosh users a jump on the future in areas like voicemail and education.
Elizabeth was a beautiful princess. She lived in a castle and had...
Because Apple understands the future of color in computing, Macintosh can display up to 16.8 million colors on the screen without special software. Compare this with the majority of DOS machines, which still work with the VGA standard, which offers only 16 colors. Because Apple understands how important it is to put people in control of the computing environment, we developed HyperCard, the first application to give users real programming power. And we ship it free with every Macintosh, as opposed to the Windows environment, which can only offer Toolbook, a slower and more complex program that comes with a suggested price of $395, and according to reviewers, requires a faster 386 processor to perform acceptably.
You need to have a 25 megahertz 386 machine. You got to have a lot of RAM. You got to have a big hard disk. It's going to cost you a fair amount of money to get into this thing to make a usable configuration of your PC. Now that's true for Windows also, so this shouldn't be a surprise. We think Toolbook, because of its speed issues, because of the modality interface, because of some of its limited capabilities for doing report generation and printing, is going to tend to inhibit people after the first blush. Like a lot of products, Toolbook is going to have a honeymoon. It's clearly the best thing that's been seen in the DOS world for a long time. On the other hand, we think after the honeymoon's over, people are going to wake up and realize that Apple really does have a superior solution in many ways because Apple has a superior philosophy of design for its products.
As you can see, when you put Macintosh and Windows side by side, it doesn't take long to show the advantages of the Macintosh unified architecture. Greater ease of use, more consistent applications, built-in networking, and a smooth, uninterrupted growth path. The real question is, what do these advantages mean? It's simple. More satisfied customers. That's what an independent research organization, Diagnostic Research Incorporated, found out when they interviewed MIS managers and individuals who have used Macintosh, DOS, and Windows. The MIS managers rated Macintosh higher both in user productivity and in ease of use, while users rated Macintosh higher for ease of use and as a source of satisfaction in their jobs. When asked how satisfied they were with their computers overall, managers and users both gave Macintosh the highest rating. When it came time to recommend purchase of a particular system, both MIS managers and users did what came naturally. They gave Macintosh the strongest recommendation. That may be the most powerful Apple advantage of all, because when it comes to demonstrating the real power of Macintosh, satisfied customers are the most persuasive evidence we have.